The supply of locally raised live chickens resumes. A massive unity march in Paris later today. And in Pakistan, 57 killed in a bus crash.
Good evening. A limited supply of locally raised live chickens was made available today. A total of 3,200 chickens was sent to market after being documented at the Taquiling checkpoint. Many people were not happy with the government's arrangement, including consumers who said there should be a larger supply of live poultry to reduce the price of birds, which rose as much as 30% today. Evelina Leung tells us more.
At 3:30 this morning, trucks began arriving at the Taquiling checkpoint. A total of 3,200 live chickens were allowed to hit the market today. Officials checked the papers for the birds. 4 trucks then went directly to the retail points. Chickens on board the 4 other trucks were transferred to 7 other lorries for distribution to vendors without touching the ground as promised by authorities. The whole process took more than 2 hours. Lin Ta-hing, chairman of a live poultry wholesalers association, called the current arrangement inefficient. He said one truck used to be able to deliver more than 1,000 chickens, but today each vehicle handled only around 400 birds. Taquiling residents are also not happy with the new arrangement. This representative said the chickens were noisy and that there were too many delivery trucks passing through the area. The Secretary for Food and Health had this to say when he went to Taquiling to take a look at the situation.
I found the operation on the whole quite smooth. Of course, there is one particular aspect, which is the noise pollution, is a bit of concern. I hope it is still acceptable to the local residents, but we will certainly seek to improve the facilities at the checkpoint.
Later during the day, poultry wholesalers held a meeting. They said the Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department has informed them that a maximum of 3,960 live chickens will be allowed to be distributed to retailers tomorrow. When asked whether they are happy with this, the wholesalers said they are pocketing the current arrangement first. The group will have a meeting with the Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department officials tomorrow. They plan to ask for an increase in the daily number of live chickens to be sold on the market. Evelina Lang, TVB News.
A number of groups petitioned for issues such as workers' rights, free education, and poverty alleviation ahead of the chief executive's policy address on Wednesday. Sources say the policy address will feature subsidies for affiliate programs between local and mainland secondary schools to boost students' knowledge in national affairs. Stephanie Choi reports.
More than a dozen political parties and groups rallied from Southern Playground in Wan Chai to the central government offices this afternoon, calling on the government to include specific measures for poverty alleviation.
We hope that the government can set up different kinds of targets. For example, a short-term goal, a mid-term goal, and also a long-term goal. For the long-term goal, we hope that the welfare redistribution can be better, and also to develop much wider and different kind of tax. For example, the dividend tax.
Earlier in the morning, a number of groups handed over petitions at the chief executive's office. The Society for Community Organization pushed for the establishment of a regulatory system for rent, a universal retirement protection scheme, and measures to help low-income families. The Confederation of Trade Unions, meanwhile, demanded improvements in workers' rights, including standard working hours. Some of the groups also say they hope to see the provision of 15 years of free education in the upcoming policy address to help solve the problem of intergenerational poverty. The Professional Teachers Union held a rally at Tamar Park for this cause.
We've heard that the government is planning to subsidize fully for half-day kindergarten, but not for the full-day kindergarten. We don't understand by the notion of free kindergarten education. How come the government is planning to subsidize only part of the fees?
Also set to be part of the policy address are subsidies for affiliate programs between local and mainland secondary schools. Sources say one of the outcomes of the subsidy scheme is to strengthen local students' knowledge in national affairs. Since 2004, local schools have been pairing up with schools on the mainland through the Education Bureau. Local schools now have more than 420 affiliates in cities such as Shanghai, Beijing, and Guangdong. According to sources, the policy address will feature subsidies for schools participating in the scheme, which will amount to more than $100,000 annually for each school. But student leader Joshua Wong said he thinks public funds will be better spent on solving other issues, such as the shortage of teachers. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
On the international news front, hundreds of thousands of people are expected to attend a massive unity march in the French capital later today. Many world leaders, including the Israeli Prime Minister and the Palestinian President, are expected at the rally to condemn the terror attacks that have horrified the entire world. James Aiken reports.
A city on the highest alert level and nerves on edge after the worst assault in France in decades. Today's rally is a massive security challenge. Thousands more police officers have been deployed in addition to the tens of thousands already on duty. 17 people and 3 gunmen were killed in 3 days of violence that began with a methodical massacre at the offices of the Charlie Hebdo weekly on Wednesday. The carnage ended Friday night with twin sieges at a warehouse outside of Paris and a supermarket in the city.
Arrêtez de faire l'amalgame.
Today, the brother of Ahmed Merabet, a police officer who was among the victims and had the same background as his killers, cautioned people not to confuse extremists with Muslims. He said mad people have neither color nor religion. Elsewhere, thousands continue to pay tribute to the victims.
Well, I think it's important to walk today to say what we all call Charlie, and we believe in our security, and we don't believe that hatred and violence is a solution to anything.
We can utilize this event to create something positive and to realize that unity is better than division. And this time we have to stand united against this threat, and it's a big threat. And we shouldn't be scared. We have to face it.
Members of both the Jewish and Muslim communities gathered at the kosher supermarket where gunman Amadi Koulibaly killed 4 hostages.
N'ayons pas peur. N'ayons pas peur d'être journalistes.
France's Prime Minister told the crowd not to be afraid to be a journalist, a police officer, a Jew, or a citizen.
Il était croyant, mais même pas pratiquant.
Meanwhile, a friend of Koulibaly says nobody considered him a fundamentalist. He says Koulibaly believed in his religion, but never went to prayers or the mosque. As efforts continue to piece together the backgrounds of the attackers, the investigators now fear they may never capture Koulibaly's partner. Authorities say it appears 26-year-old Hayat Boumediene fled to Syria after vanishing near the Turkish border before the attacks. James Aiken, TVB News.
Now, in addition to Paris, hundreds of thousands of people marched across France yesterday to mourn those who were killed in the terror attacks. And thousands more across the world expressed solidarity with France by holding their own vigils. Fear and sadness have gripped the people of France over the recent terror attacks that rocked their country. But hundreds of thousands determined to bring back the peace marched through Toulouse and Nice in the south of France to honor the 17 victims. Emotions ran high on the streets of Lille and Nantes, where thousands of people took to the streets. Large crowds gathered in Marseille as a way to pay their respects. An estimated 50,000 people were in attendance. Those rallying on the streets of New York view the problem of terrorism as reverberating far beyond France.
I'm from France. I'm personally touched by this. I think we have to keep the freedom of expression.
To uphold the freedom of expression, the head of the United Nations encouraged media the world over to unite.
It's important that the freedom of speech, freedom of media opinion should be protected.
That sentiment was echoed on the streets of London. That's where people brought pens and piled them on top of each other in Trafalgar Square to pay tribute to the victims of Charlie Hebdo. Dozens of Lebanese gathered in Beirut to condemn the attacks. Many held banners and lit candles. In Morocco, over 300 journalists, citizens, and others expressed their grief and condemned the violence. Similar scenes were captured at a park in South Africa where residents held a moment of silence. French citizens living in Turkey took to demonstrating outside the French consulate in Istanbul. To show solidarity with the French, journalists and cartoonists in India drew cartoons and lit candles in honor of those who died.
In Pakistan, a bus full of passengers crashed into an oil tanker this morning, killing 57 people on board. Authorities have warned relatives the victims were burned beyond recognition. The bodies were taken to a medical center in Karachi, where medics are finding it hard to identify who's who. The hospital will have to do DNA analysis to identify the victims. Outside the hospital, relatives were waiting in agony to identify their loved ones. The Minister of Transportation confirmed the bus was completely burned on the inside from the fire. Such horrific traffic accidents are common in Pakistan due to reckless and untrained drivers and poor roads. 4 people did survive, but they're suffering from injuries.
Search teams believe a sonar scan has detected the fuselage that belongs to the AirAsia plane that crashed 2 weeks ago, killing 162 people on board. The National Rescue Agency said a sonar scan had revealed an object that resembles the size of a fuselage on the sea floor. A team of divers has already been sent to prove this data. But strong winds, currents, and high waves have been hampering efforts to reach this and other suspected wreckage. Searchers have also been hearing pings believed to be from the aircraft's black box flight recorders near where the plane's tail was raised out of the sea yesterday. They are now scrambling to locate the black boxes before the batteries of the plane's beacons run out.
When we come back, Albert Ho explains his resignation plan. 5 elderly people injured in an accident on a Yaotong shopping mall escalator. And a statue of Margaret Thatcher unveiled in the Falklands.
Later tonight, Dakar Rally 2015 daily highlights at this time on Pearl. The most extreme winter sports. What does it take to be the fastest, the highest, and the most dangerous? Monday, Super Bodies at 9:30 on Pearl.
People assumed that animals behave purely out of instinct.
But we're discovering that animals are ingenious problem solvers.
He worked out to use his own water, what he had around him, to his advantage, which I think shows a lot of intelligence.
Who will solve this puzzle? Wednesday, Inside the Animal Mind at 9:30 on Pearl. The time now is 7:44. The time check was brought to you by Seiko.